By late 2025, Sri Lanka had become a story of resurrection. Just 3 years earlier, the island nation had collapsed into bankruptcy, the first sovereign default in Asia Pacific this century. Fuel queues stretched for kilometers, inflation hit 90%, 13-hour power cuts became routine. The people rose up as a result of the economic crisis, storming the presidential palace, demanding change. However, the country began to recover swiftly, both economically and socially. By November 2025, something remarkable had happened. Tourism was booming with 3 million expected visitors and earnings increasing by 53%. Inflation had stabilized and the Sri Lankan rupee was recovering. The economy grew by 5%. Against all odds, Sri Lanka was rising. Then, on a fateful Thursday, this booming island nation was hit with a gigantic hydrological bomb.
මාර වගේ වෙනකොට අපේ ගෙදරට දැම්ම වතුර.
27 වෙනිදා හවස 6:50ට
හතා මාට විතර තමයි මේ සිදුවීම වුණේ.
හවස 6 මාරට තමයි මේ වතුර පටන් ගත්තේ.
28 වෙනිදා පාන්දර
දිවෙනට ඇදහැලෙන වැඩිම වර්ෂාපතනය
grappling with one of its worst weather-related disasters.
As the country grapples with one of its worst weather disasters.
Floods are sweeping thousands.
In just 24 hours, 13 billion cubic meters of water fell on this small island. This amounted to 10% of the nation's annual rainfall in a single day.
ලැබිච්ච ජල කඳේ තියෙන වේගෝ ශක්තිය ජූල්ස් ට්‍රිලියන 13000. Hiroshima බෝම්බ 200ක විතර සමස්ත ශක්ති ප්‍රමාණයක් එක දවසකට විතර ලැබිලා තියෙනවා.
This was Ditwah.
எங்களோட மாமா வந்து இப்படி ஒருத்தர் உயிரை காப்பாற்ற வந்தனால தான் அவரோட உயிர் போணுச்சு. அவர் இல்லாமல் 2 பேர்.
On November 27th, this cyclonic storm formed in the Bay of Bengal. Unlike typical cyclones that sweep quickly across land, Ditwah stalled. It ground slowly across Sri Lanka's heart, dumping catastrophic volumes of water for days. The mountains wrung out the moisture-laden winds like a sponge. The already saturated ground couldn't absorb another drop. Within hours, rivers burst their banks. Landslides tore down hillsides. The island was drowning. The human toll. As of 10th December 2025, 639 confirmed dead, 193 still missing, over 1.7 million people affected, nearly 10% of the nation's population. Hundreds of thousands displaced into safety centers. All 25 districts declared disaster zones.
මේ ඇල ගලාගෙන මේගවල් කොටිපට්ටම් කරගෙන පල්ලෙහාට ගියා කියලා. අඩි 20ක 25ක උස ජල කඳක් තමයි මේකෙන් පල්ලෙහාට ගලාගෙන ගියේ.
තැපැල් කන්තෝරුවයි අලුතෙන් හදපු ගොඩනැගිලි දෙකක් තිබුණා. ඊට පස්සේ මෙහා පැත්තෙන් තේ කඩයක් තිබුණා. ඒ තේ කඩේට පිටපස්සෙන් තමයි මේ ගේ තිබුණේ.
අඩි කොට පාලමත් එක කඩාන ගීගාලා ආව එන්න.
මිනිස්සු ආහාරින් ඉඳලා කෑ ගහන අපේ බේර ගන්න එක. නමුත් අපිට ඒ යන්න විදිහක් නැහැ. මෙහෙන් ලොකු වතුර පාරක් එනවා. මෙහෙන් මඩ ගොඩවල් විනාඩි ගානකින් දුරකථන විසඳුණා සියලු දුරකථනම.
සම්පූර්ණ ගේම ලැට්ටලා තියෙන එක. ඉතින් ගන්න බබාලා ගැඳුම්ද කිසි කෙනෙක්ගේ ඉතින් කිසි දෙයක් ගන්න බැරුණයි.
මල්ලතුවේ තියෙනවනේ ඒ පැත්තෙන් වතුර ඇවිල්ලා තමයි ඊට පස්සේ ඉස්සරහනුත් ආවා.
මේ වැල උතුරන බැම්ම උඩින් වතුර දැම්ම. ඉතින් මේ ප්‍රදේශයම සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම යට වෙලා තියෙනවා.
බේර ගන්න බැරුව ගියා මොකද ජනෙල් උඩින් ආයෙ වතුර දැම්මා.
ඇත්තම කියනවා නම් ඇඬුවා දෙන්න. ඒක යට වෙන බලාගෙන ඇඬුවා. ඊට කරාගන්න දෙයක් නැහැ.
සීයා හිටියා නැන්දා හිටියා මාමා හිටියා. එයාලගේ බොඩිස් තාම හම්බුනේ නැහැ. ඒක තමයි හොයන්නේ.
රෑ නිින්දිදි තමයි ඔක්කොම නිදි පැදුරේ නිින්දි තමයි ඔක්කොම නැති වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. ඉතින් දැනට අපේ 40 දෙනෙක් විතර නැති වෙලා තියෙනවා.
තාම මරණ එහෙම ඇලේ මේ 9ක් විතර තියෙනවා. ඒ අය වඳුර ගන්නත් බෑ මෙතන මේ මරණයක් තියෙන්නේ. ඒව මේ පස් දාලා මේවා කරලා තියෙන්නේ.
1,588 houses completely destroyed. 87,496 homes partially damaged. The infrastructure collapse was total. Over 16,000 kilometers of roads exposed to flooding. 480 bridges located in flooded areas. Several provincial connections. Over 4,000 power distribution towers disabled. 17,251 power distribution feeders disconnected, leaving over 4 million of consumers affected at the storm's peak. The landslide crisis was concentrated and lethal. The Central Highlands suffered dozens of distinct landslide events. In Kandy district alone, there have been 234 deaths. Adulla district reports 90 deaths. Nuwara district, the heart of tea country, records 89 deaths. Communities built on steep slopes, tea plantation workers in their line rooms were swept away in minutes. In the lowlands, major river systems overwhelmed their basins. The Kalani River flooded critical Colombo suburbs, Kaduwela, Kolonnava, Vallampitiya, Kalaniya. The Mavilaru Reservoir Dam breached, a catastrophic structural failure requiring emergency airlifts by the Air Force of 120 people. Economic devastation followed the water. The tea industry is foreseeing around 30% to 35% of crop drop, making the export target of $1.5 billion impossible. The tourism sector, just days into peak season with hotels fully booked, faced immediate cancellations. Rice fields across the northern plains were submerged before harvest. Vegetable prices spiked 20% to 200% due to the supply chain collapse. The total cost, $6 to $7 billion. 7% of GDP was wiped out in a week. This is a nation whose foreign reserves barely exceed this figure. A nation that had just secured an IMF bailout. A nation that had finally started to breathe again. Here are the cruel mathematics of disaster. It took 3 years of painful reforms to stabilize the economy. It may take decades to fully recover from Ditwah. The tea export target of 1.5 billion is unachievable now. The tourism boom was threatened just as peak season arrived. Tourism earnings had reached $3.17 billion by September, up 53% from the previous year. The fiscal space created by austerity consumed by reconstruction needs. Every gain, every hard-won victory over the past 3 years now hangs in the balance. Sri Lanka is a nation that had learned to rebuild from the civil war, from the tsunami, from economic collapse, and now from Cyclone Ditwah. The waters are receding. The mud is being cleared.
There was the big disaster. I saw bridges broken. I saw roads completely gone, houses completely gone. I saw persons who lost their family. It was really intense. In all this disaster, I also saw so many smiles, so many resilience. Even with the disaster, the people organized themselves to give food, to give accommodation to all of those people. There is so many things to learn from the people, from the nature. Here it's so beautiful, it's so amazing. I'm so happy to be here. So don't be afraid, come to Sri Lanka and receive this wonderful smile.
The resilience that carried this island through its darkest hours is being summoned once more. The roads are open again. Travelers can visit any part of the country. The situation is safe. Doors for investments are open. But the permanent damage will take time to heal. Infrastructure must be rebuilt. Communities must be restored. Livelihoods must be recovered. And that is where we need assistance. The question is not whether Sri Lanka will recover. It's whether the world will remember that natural disasters don't pause for nations still healing from man-made ones. And whether this time the recovery will build something stronger than what the waters washed away.